Do you miss your grandmother?
I do actually, yeah, I do miss my grandmother. And my grandfather, particularly being in Windsor. For me, Windsor is hers. Sometimes I'd come round and have a bit of tea with her because she had the best teas ever, so I used to get well fed.
Do you miss your grandmother? I do, actually. Yeah, I do miss my grandmother and my grandfather, particularly being in Windsor. For me, Windsor is her. Sometimes I'd come around and have a bit of tea with her 'cause she had the best teas ever. So I used to get well fed. On February 3rd, 2026, Buckingham Palace released a quiet two-paragraph statement that detonated like a depth charge inside royal households and legal chambers across Britain. Prince William had been named sole beneficiary of one of the most secretive, historically significant private estates in the monarchy's entire history. Not Sandringham, not Balmoral, not Windsor, something older, something hidden, something Queen Elizabeth II had been protecting for years. When Camilla and her son Tom discovered what had been transferred and what had been deliberately kept from them, the fury inside palace walls was unlike anything staff had witnessed in a generation. This is the story of every estate, every clause, every confrontation. From the Queen's handwritten covenants to Tom Parker BS collapsed commercial schemes to the moment Camilla stood silently watching William sign away her ambitions forever. This isn't just an inheritance story. It's Queen Elizabeth II's final unanswerable chess move. The Cedar Estate, a secret older than most memories. Let's begin where this story truly begins. Not in 2026, but in 1944, during the darkest chapter of the Second World War, King George V, faced with the existential uncertainty of wartime Britain, quietly purchased an estate tucked deep within the Chiltern Hills, straddling the border between Oxfordshire and Buckinghamshire. It was called the Cedar Estate, and from the moment of its acquisition, it was designed to disappear. No royal registry listing, no public media report, no ceremonial acknowledgement. For over 8 decades, the Cedar Estate existed only in the whispered conversations of senior quarters, a shadow property known to almost nobody, protected by everyone who did know. And here is the first question you should be sitting with. Why would the royal family maintain a secret estate for 80 years? What was inside it that demanded that level of concealment? The answer arrived in the internal briefing notes shared with members of the Royal Correspondent Guild on the morning of February 3rd, 2026. What those notes described left even the most seasoned royal historians momentarily speechless. The Cedar Estate contains a private chapel with an engraved memorial vault listing royal family members who served in armed conflict, archival vaults housing 186 oak chests filled with personal wartime correspondence and confidential royal communications, 72 previously undisclosed royal portraits, including never-before-seen oil paintings of King George V and Princess Margaret, and perhaps most extraordinary of all, 14 sealed audio recordings of Queen Elizabeth II in private dialogue with Winston Churchill, Nelson Mandela, Ronald Reagan, and Charles de Gaulle. One archivist who had spent decades working within the royal archives described the collection in a single unforgettable phrase. This was not, he said, a museum of history. It was the raw, unfiltered architecture of royal memory, a window into the private soul of the monarchy itself. Now, here is what makes this even more significant. Between 2017 and 2021, Prince William had been quietly visiting the Cedar Estate on private weekends, not as a tourist, not as a ceremonial guest. He walked the cedar groves with the Queen. He reviewed wartime correspondence. He personally catalogued naval dispatches. He refiled hundreds of letters from Second World War soldiers. He even repaired moisture control systems in the archival chambers. This was not duty by appearance. This was stewardship by conviction. And Queen Elizabeth noticed. In a handwritten annotation found within the Covenant Trust, she wrote these words: "He will inherit more than the crown. He will inherit the silence that preserved it." Those words were not accidental. They were a declaration. The Covenant Trust of a legal fortress built in secret. Now, we need to talk about the legal architecture that made this transfer possible, because it is as extraordinary as the estate itself. The Cedar Estate does not fall under the Crown Estate. It does not fall under the Duchy of Cornwall. Instead, It exists under a private legal mechanism called a covenant trust created in 2020, filed under Charter Seal 0142, and witnessed by the Queen's personal solicitor, a constitutional advisor, and a notary from the Royal Archives. The trust came equipped with a delayed activation clause designed to trigger only after two specific conditions were met: the conclusion of the Queen's state funeral and the moment Prince William was publicly recognized as heir to institutional responsibility. Both conditions have now been met. The official statement confirmed it plainly. Under the terms of the sealed covenant trust executed by Her late Majesty Queen Elizabeth II in 2020, the property known as the Cedar Estate shall pass in full and exclusive guardianship to His Royal Highness, the Prince of Wales, effective immediately. Simple words, irreversible consequences. But here is where the story shifts from inheritance to confrontation. Because not everyone received this news with grace. Camilla and Tom, the plans that were never meant to be found. Multiple sources have confirmed what palace insiders had suspected for some time. Queen Camilla and her son Tom Parker BS had been quietly, persistently, and strategically angling to bring the Cedar Estate under their influence for years. Beginning in late 2024, Camilla had been advocating internally for what she called a Windsor Cultural Legacy Center, a vision that included gourmet retreats celebrating British culinary heritage, literary salons emphasizing female royal narratives, and small group historical tours through the cedar groves. It sounded respectable on the surface, but beneath that surface, the ambitions were considerably less sentimental. Tom Parker BS saw something else entirely when he looked at the Cedar Estate. He saw money. Private memos reviewed by royal insiders show he had been developing a vision that included a Michelin-grade tasting restaurant inside the Old Hunting Lodge, an artisanal food brand called Royal Wild featuring cedar-aged cheeses, wild trout, estate honey, and seasonal Highland wines, elite side affairs for exclusive guests, a commercial operation dressed in the clothing of royal heritage. And then came October 18, 2025, and a leaked briefing note that changed everything. Tom's legal team had been exploring whether portions of the estate could be reclassified under public heritage law, arguing that its wartime origins justified cultural protection status. The legal reclassification would have weakened William's exclusive claim and potentially opened the door to shared management. Ask yourself this: does any of that sound like respect for a sacred royal legacy? Or does it sound like a commercial takeover wearing a heritage mask? In November 2025, Camilla hosted a private reception near Henley-on-Thames, inviting heritage donors, food critics, and art historians. On the surface, the event celebrated rural sustainability. But attendees tell a different story. It was, in the words of one guest, a trial balloon, a dry run for a public-private stewardship model that would allow Camilla's foundation and outside donors to share control of the Cedar Estate. William learned of the event. He politely but firmly declined to participate. He maintained the Queen's original vision without equivocation. 3 weeks later, he activated the Covenant Trust. Northacre Hall, the estate Camilla believed she had already won. The Cedar Estate was not the only battleground. On January 31, 2026, the land registry quietly updated to reflect another transfer that Camilla had not anticipated. Northacre Hall, a sprawling 1,200-acre heritage property nestled among Wiltshire's ancient hedge and Berkshire's rolling hills. Historically a lesser-known royal retreat, it had hosted hunting weekends and sensitive diplomatic gatherings during Queen Elizabeth II's reign. Its combination of historical prestige, agricultural revenue, and untapped licensing rights linked to an 800-year legacy made it, according to commercial assessments, a uniquely strategic royal asset. What makes the Northacre Hall transfer remarkable is the timing. Documents dated September 8, 2022, weeks before the Queen's passing, reveal that she had formally reclassified Northacre Hall from a shared Crown estate asset to a personal sovereign holding. This ensured she could transfer it privately through her will rather than through institutional succession. In Appendix R3, she wrote, "Let Northacre remain with the child who bears the burden of our future. Let it be not merely shelter, but sanctuary." The decision bypassed both Prince Charles, now King, and Princess Anne. The ripples through the inner royal circle were immediate and quiet, like a stone dropped into still water at midnight. According to palace archivists, this was the first personal transfer of its kind since Queen Victoria's Highland reallocation in 1872, executed in absolute secrecy. Only 2 living witnesses were privy to the codicil, Lady Sarah Chatsworth and the late Queen's legal adviser, Sir Alastair Denholm. The sealed envelope was deposited with 3 words on the outside, "For the reign after me." But Camilla had not been idle. Leaked notes from a palace aide confirmed that by 2023, she and Tom had been lobbying discreetly to incorporate Northacre Hall into a royal culinary heritage venture. Presented publicly as a farm-to-table revival, but backed privately by luxury investors from the UAE and a Paris-based venture capital firm. The plan included a 5-star boutique hotel, a heritage cooking school, and a complete rebranding of the estate as a luxury Windsor destination. A commercial feasibility study from July 2025 valued Northacre Hall's licensing rights alone at over $48 million over a 10-year horizon. One courtier, speaking anonymously, summarized the moment with devastating precision. Camilla believed she had soft-bought the estate through influence. The Queen outmaneuvered her from beyond the grave. What followed was a carefully orchestrated campaign of whispers and subtle pressure led by Camilla's longtime fixer Maurice Lello, a retired PR consultant known for palace back-channel games. Anonymous think pieces began appearing in late 2025, suggesting the monarchy had overinvested in heritage assets and needed to recalibrate generational equity. In a final push, Tom allegedly attempted to secure a lease inquiry on the Northacre Southern Orchard Tract, claiming it was unused arable land. The request was promptly denied by the Duchy of Cornwall legal team, citing inheritance protection. Palace sources described Camilla's reaction as a temper crisis in November 2025. The word used by those present was not anger. It was something colder. Fury at being outflanked by a dead woman. Clarence Hill Estate, the Queen's most personal covenant. Now we arrive at what may be the most emotionally resonant chapter in this extraordinary story. In mid-January 2026, Princess Anne conducted a forensic review of the Queen's private correspondence at Windsor's Oak Room. What she discovered, folded 3 times, secured within a leather folio bearing the Mark W. William George, was a caudal unlike anything the family had seen. Clarence Hill Estate, nestled deep in the Chiltern Hills, accessible only via a discreet private driveway stretching 4 miles from any main road. A property that had been quietly purchased in 1947 by King George V/6, designed as an off-book reserve for direct heirs, insulated from Parliament, public scrutiny, and the flux of royal funding. The Queen's directive was written in her own hand, clear, unambiguous, and deliberately personal. I entrust Clarence Hill to my grandson William in full title and spirit, free of encumbrance, free of shadow. Let it remain outside the Crown Estate, immune to politics, immune to scandal. This land is a covenant, not a commodity. Its purpose is to guard the moral line of succession. That phrase, immune to scandal, was not idle writing. Sources indicate the Queen had grown deeply wary of public controversies surrounding Prince Andrew and the volatile media ventures of Prince Harry. To Elizabeth, her legacy needed moral insulation, a place untouched by gossip, profit, or chaos. Clarence Hill would be William and Catherine's sanctuary, the ethical and dynastic compass of the family's future. Camilla learned of the transfer on January 20th. According to sources, she immediately summoned her legal team at Highgrove alongside Tom. Her son had just suffered a significant publishing contract loss connected to a scandal involving his food brand's misuse of the royal crest. Clarence Hill was not sacred to her. It was a commercial opportunity, and she intended to claim it. Internal emails later leaked revealed her vision in her own words. Imagine the launch from the Queen's garden to yours. By January 23rd, a proposal was already drafted under a newly registered company called Hill and Crown Limited with Tom listed as executive director. The plan to rebrand Clarence Hill into a boutique hospitality and agricultural brand emphasizing regenerative luxury, climate resilience, and royal sustainability. Tom would become, in Camilla's vision, the the Prince of Green Britain. His aristocratic future grounded in soil rather than in scandal. But the codicil had already been notarized in the royal archives. The legal transfer to the Duchy of Cornwall Trust had already been completed. Hill and Crown Limited arrived 3 weeks too late. Then came January 28th and the leak that ended it all. An anonymous whistleblower believed by some to be a disillusioned former aide forwarded the internal Hill and Crown business deck to the Lord Chancellor's office, citing attempted commercial trespass on a sealed royal legacy. The leaked documents revealed everything. Rebranding strategies, speculative luxury valuations, and mock-ups of Clarence Hill with corporate logos airbrushed over its Edwardian facade. The backlash was immediate and total. William confronted Camilla at Windsor during a private lunch intended to honor Catherine's recovery. Sources close to the royal household described the exchange as brief, but devastating. William reportedly said, "Clarence Hill does not exist to be bottled, branded, or sold. It is the last sanctuary of my grandmother's soul, and I will protect it as I protect my wife and children." Camilla left without finishing her meal. Within 48 hours, Hill and Crown Limited was dissolved. Tom withdrew from 3 public appearances, citing stress-related fatigue. No formal statements were issued, but inside the palace, the message was unambiguous. King Charles, refusing direct engagement with the confrontation, later confided in Princess, and with a line that has since passed into royal household legend. Elizabeth always knew who would hold the crown, not just wear it. Greystone Downs, where Camilla's ambitions reached their most dangerous point. Just when the dust from Clarence Hill seemed to be settling, a new battleground emerged. And this one was more audacious than anything that had come before. Greystone Downs, a protected estate of over 400 acres of ancient woodland, boasting a Tudor hunting lodge dating to 1578 and a private stone chapel adorned with 17th-century relics. Queen Elizabeth had spent over 4 decades preserving Greystone Downs as both a retreat and a living archive of royal moral code. Leaving it to William was not just practical, it was symbolic. He wasn't only heir to the throne, he was heir to restraint, stewardship, and quiet dignity. Camilla and Tom saw it differently. Valued at £80 million according to documents recovered from a former financial aide, Greystone Downs was their most coveted target yet. Their vision was staggering in its ambition, and many would argue staggering in its audacity. 5,000 per night eco-lodges, curated farm-to-table dining hosted by Tom himself, a members-only royal culinary circle targeting elite clientele from the UAE and East Asia. All of it packaged as a Windsor sanctuary, a premium brand built on a foundation of someone else's heritage. Behind the scenes, Camilla's legal liaison, Sir Piers Mullery, had begun probing the will for any clause that might allow shared custodianship or heritage collaboration. Any thread that could unravel